It is notoriously difficult to understand cause and effect in a supply chain. When automation fails due to disruptions or simply because status quo has changed, companies have a very difficult time adapting. As a result, delayed orders or lost opportunities like excess inventory are commonplace.
Like every day.
In Foundry, all models, regardless of the environment they are built in, are managed in a unified framework. For example, here we're looking at a library of all this organization's models. They are closely coupled with their ultimate business objective, like maximizing production or minimizing cost with COGS models, or balancing the inflow and outflow of inventory from a distribution center. And we can identify if they are being used in production.
These are just key metrics. They're going to pertain more to like supply chain managers. But there's some of the general KPIs.
In the catalog, I can quickly scroll down to find seasonal demand models and production models, among others. I can see how many deployments are currently active, the overall model health, and more. More importantly, all model inputs and outputs are mapped and bound to their representation in the real world. For example, I can hover over the customer demand model and see that the objects associated with the inputs are raw material order and material.
Okay, so now we're getting into the stuff that pertains more to the supply chain managers and the people actually like analysts and stuff that use this platform, which is pretty good because this is the kind of stuff that developers want to see so that they can improve their product, right? So there's like application level logging. So in each of these, like, you know, click points or anything in this thing, there's like logging that goes from inside all the way to some kind of system where they can say, okay, this person clicked this, you know, get like a heat map or a sense of what users are using on this platform.
And the objects associated with the outputs are raw material order, plant, and material. By clicking this model, I can not only see the business context around the project in the form of a prediction goal that you see at the top, but also how the model's inputs and outputs are mapped to the real world. Here we can see the specific properties for the inputs are cost and price, and the outputs are demand, capacity, and inventory. I can monitor model performance, manage changes to this model over time, and manage how this model is deployed into the application layer. The most valuable aspect of this product is not managing individual models, but instead enabling the models to relate to each other through a simulation engine, powered again by the ontology. We can go to our simulation interface, Vertex. With the seasonal demand model and the production model, we can quickly traverse a complex value chain and ask questions like, if a supplier delivers only 50% of a raw material, what is the impact on my on-time delivery of finished goods? Which of my customers are most impacted? Because the models are chained together through real-world mapping, I can easily understand the complexities of my entire supply chain, from upstream suppliers to downstream customers, and everything in between, including the plants and the distribution center nodes. As a result, everyone can understand and anticipate the side effects of their decisions, allowing for unprecedented collaboration and universally optimal decision-making. By moving the slider, we can simulate the interactions of all of the models and the impact on the supply chain into the future. We can see some of the nodes turn red, the plants and distribution centers you see on the map, alerting us to potential problems in our supply chain, such as low inventory or an increase in unexpected demand, or anything else. Here we're looking at the detailed system view, but this simulation engine can also be deployed into any application to inform decisions at every level of the organization. So let's quickly go back to...
Let's just get that back real quick. That was a pretty important point, I think.
Allowing for unprecedented collaboration and universal real-world mapping, I can easily understand the complexities of my entire supply chain. From there, I can evaluate potential actions. Other applications like product planning and pricing can easily be built on top of the same simulation layer, ensuring consistent assumptions and enabling collaboration across functions. The connective tissue of the platform allows efficient iteration and decision-making across any layer of an organization, from the COO to the supply chain manager, all the way to the logistics analyst creating the simulations.
To be completely frank though, at this point, it's totally useless. It's lost on like maybe 90% of the people. Anybody outside of your particular unit or your team, or some kind of like Scrum or Agile, pod, no one gives a shit about like all this other stuff. The C-suite people, like I've had when I worked in smaller companies, it was very transparent. Like you could talk to them directly. But even those guys, they didn't give a shit. They really just wanted you to give them reports, basically. So, which I'm assuming Foundry should have that. They should know, man. They should know. Like they don't really care much about logging in and getting stuff, right? Unless they're like really, really technical or something, or they have some sort of technical background. Just being honest, most of the interactions I've had have been, oh yeah, that's great, you know, give us why don't you give us a report that details exactly what we want to hear instead of you telling me. So
let's quickly go back to our supply chain control tower. We enriched the alert response workflow so users can run simulations of potential remediation action. In this, we have an unexpected excess of raw materials. Once I look at the overview, I can click into the Planning Response tab. So I can see the current raw material excess inventory, the expected.
So all of this stuff right now is basically the UI that the analyst or the supply chain person would see. This is pretty important, not really from a technical side of it. I'll get touch on it in a second, but it seems like they have certain key metrics available sort of right off the bat, and it's very configurable, which is very important for this kind of setup. But I think the demo's almost done, so let me let it finish and then I'll chime in after.
So far, we've really focused on how the ontology and simulation engine provides an unprecedented infrastructure for decision making.
That's an awesome feature.
To close this demo, we want to talk about how we are scaling this technology and making it easier for customers to leverage it through.
Okay, this I'm looking for. I'm looking for this part right here, but I'll chime in after on all the stuff that we just watched.
Software-defined data integration and our use case catalog, making it easier for customers to leverage their data, the ontology, and the simulation engine. First, let's understand where the data exists with the customer and how we can quickly connect to those data sources. Palantir Foundry provides point-and-click connection, integration, and transformation of data. For legacy ERP systems, the product goes even further, taking raw data, joining it, and deriving new features that can be leveraged in downstream workflows.
That's awesome.
Data projects that previously took years are done in hours. So how did we accelerate the time to value for our customers? Through software-defined data integration. It unlocks business value in unprecedented time, not seen in other software. Instead of spending months and years parsing complex backend systems, our SDDI technology automatically connects the business-readable format with the backend table names and infers the relationships between data tables, including any user-defined tables. Our SDDI technology also leverages the online shopping experience where users can add the necessary data to the cart, which can then be synced.
Okay.
When users are ready, they can select sync, which automatically creates the ontology from the data source through the transformation layer all the way to those objects that we saw previously, the plant, the distribution center, and the customer. At the beginning of this talk, I mentioned that Foundry now ships with a catalog of comprehensive.
Okay, all right. I think we let it run on for long enough. Let me just chime in on a few things. I'll just close it up on this. We're actually around in the middle of that video there, so there's still like 16 minutes left. There's a lot of extra components towards the end that this guy answers, but I just want to say one thing, okay? The beginning part of this part, this is the part 3, I'm assuming, and it's going to describe more of the UI part of it, which caters to the people that are actually using the product, okay? One thing I'll tell you is this: from what I'm seeing, it is honestly super crisp. For comparison, I'm sure some of you guys, you know, are experienced in this and work in the industry, but go take a look at something like a Microsoft Dynamics dashboard, right, or an SAP ERP dashboard. They are pretty nice. Like it's not like it's bad, but it is really convoluted and messy. Here's the thing, guys. Okay, like in this kind of space, the problems are actually disguised as like, you know, positive solutions. Okay, that's what it's my opinion, of course, but that's what I think the problem is, and Palantir addresses this from the T. So what I mean by that is basically like, so when I've had some vendors come in and they say, oh, we have this, we have that, we can do branding and we can do all sorts of other stupid shit that you don't really need, right? On top of that, like if you need an extra feature, we can do a professional services thing that can, write something for you. That should never be the way to do it. They're basically compromising their own product, right? Which is a kind of a problem. Even if it is an ancillary solution, you are the expert. You should be providing me with something that I'm paying lots of money for as a client. It should be working exactly the way I want it right out of the box, right? Now, Palantir doesn't actually give you that, but the thing is, the stuff they do give you addresses a lot of the questions that you would have anyway down the line. So that's what I'm saying here. The analyst is usually where most of these questions come from. The people that use these platforms actually have lots of optimizations they'd like to sort of consider. They move that up the chain to their project managers. That goes down to the development team, and they'll see whether they can do it in-house. If they can't, then they'll go to the actual vendor and do it from a professional services side, which again is money. Like, you have to pay for this stuff. So just from that example, it's very important to have something right out of the box working exactly the way you need it to, at least to a certain degree. Like Palantir, from what I can tell, and I'm not a supply chain manager, but from what I can tell, addresses a lot of that, especially with the widgets and all these things that they provide. On top of that, a lot of these systems are really just made so that you can, it's all just relational, right? There's different tables. You're doing the relationship between these tables, putting them into some kind of UI and displaying them to you. Now, that's so important. Like the amount of, just different data sets that you need to pull in, and the amount of backend work that goes into this to actually do the comparisons and the combinations and the aggregations for these tables it's just like on another level. That's the meat and potatoes of this, right? The fact that they can do this, and as well, another layer that is not really, pitched too strongly here, but most of this demo is probably mocks. It's all mocked. It's all mock data. They have that ontology layer, right? But then they also have that sim AI layer. That's awesome, man. That's like, wow, you need that actually, especially in this kind of workflow. You need to be able to say, okay, I have this situation. Can I run it up to the sim layer and just run sort of like a dry run and see what happens? This is not unique, but just from the way it looks and feels, it seems like they've got all the points that you need to for that layer, which is like really incredible. To be honest, like we should really speak to somebody who's in the ERP side to see if they've used a product like this, because I think there's definitely lesser or fewer optimizations that need post discovery or post implementation, which is awesome. Like it's basically plug and play. And a lot of times, if you do have any optimizations, you can write them within your own organization. You don't have to go outside. And in which case, Palantir probably provides APIs for Foundry, in which your own software can actually consume the data from Foundry and then do your own automation on your side. So that's pretty cool. And one more thing, like when he was talking about the whole, you saw like that, mesh thing where it said, okay, this is your entire supply chain. There's like a few red things here. I have a feeling that's where America's using their stuff, that collaboration with that supply chain company in Germany or something. But anyway, I got to do a video on that actually. It's up next. But anyway, that stuff is actually super important too. Now that's not, again, it's not unheard of. It is something that does exist. This kind of like workflow type of organization does exist in the industry. But the thing is, for you to be able to actively and dynamically say, okay, this part of the supply chain will fail, that is a level that is a little above what's expected. Mainly because, see, a lot of companies don't do it because it brings forth the complexity that is sort of like hard to go around, okay? Because everyone's supply chain is different, right? Everyone's data sets are different. So what happens is these companies nowadays with the ERP solutions, they provide sort of like a very baseline approach, and then you can add on top of that based on your customization. This is actually a lock-in process. This is how they lock you in, right? Because once you're in, they basically have like pretty much full reign. You have so many customizations because they only provided you a baseline product, right? So you have so many customizations, and you're paying so much money for it. It's almost like, well, we already sank so much money into this. Why would we go with something else? By the way, that might be an issue with how they're going to onboard Palantir. That might be one of the reasons they might not pick Palantir, right? So just think about that. But more importantly, it works out of the box. And the thing is, it's the ability for it to pick up all these data sets and say, okay, you have a potential bottleneck. You have a potential bottleneck down here in this one like channel or whatever is actually really cool. And if they can get that to work, that is going to be the thing that makes this entire platform with Foundry just completely take off. Because that stuff is so crucial to analysts that when they move to a different company, they will be like, I can't do this with like whatever other kind of like a supply chain managing product. I have to use like Foundry, right? So So, you know, that's the big thing, guys. And lastly, you know, let's touch on this, but it seems like they're trying to make, like I have always said this, right? Palantir is a platform company. It's a platform company, and they're building a full ecosystem with Foundry. And it seems like they have, and again, this is not new, but the amount of level of integrations they have with third-party and existing legacy systems is crazy. Like, they're saying, okay, you don't have to, like, you know, remove your ERP system and use HyperAuto or anything. Keep it, but like we can integrate with it, no problem, right? Here's our you know, APIs or whatever it is. You know, feel free to ask your developers to plug your data into here. If you have a data lake, we can also plug into that. Like, there's a whole section called sources, and I think what is it, syncs and all this other stuff that basically does this whole thing. And it makes it very easy for the analyst to actually get started fast. Most of the time they need so much help from developers and all this other stuff, but in this case it's very, very easy, turnkey. So the value is that, guys. I think it's a very understated product. There's so much here that I can talk about, but I think I'll end it here. But, you know, my big concern with this is how much are they going to ramp, and what is the adoption rate going to be? Because it's an amazing, fantastic product, and already is better than anything I've ever seen. But, you know, who's going to pick it? Who's going to be the first to say, okay, I don't want to spend any more money with whatever other product. I would rather take a chance with these guys and see what happens. They're definitely not making a bad decision, but they have to make the decision, and that's part of the problem. A lot of these enterprises are big, slow, and lazy, and they have very old school, you know, mentalities, and they tend not to change very easily. So let's see what happens. I mean, I'm really excited for this product. We're really in the early stage, so let's see what happens. Either way, that's it for me, guys. I think I'm demoed out. I'm gonna go check out some other videos and give my perspectives. If you like this, please feel free to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down, whatever you want. Chat with me in the comments, and honestly, if you feel this helps, share it out, man. Let's see if we can have some more folks in the community. Yeah, that's it. I'll catch you guys on the flip. Peace.